president. And we're now joined by the interim president back in 2016 and 17, Dr. David Garland, who joins us on Sic'Em 365 Radio, 365 Sports with Craig and David Smoke. Dr. Garland, thank you so much. Appreciate your time. Tell everybody what you're doing these days.
At the seminary, I have one more year and writing books.
Writing books. So are you a writer who writes late at night, or is it just kind of throughout the day?
Very early in the morning.
Really?
And throughout the day.
And throughout the day. We have, I kind of came, that somebody mentioned about the coach of the search that found Mack Rhoades. And I was going to do this anyway, but they brought up Dr. Garland, they brought you up. And then, of course, we had Doug McNamee, who was not a part of the search, but was in the athletic department, fundraising, then athletic department when Mack arrived tomorrow. Bob Bodine and Dan Horde will join us tomorrow. So kind of would want to go through that time. You obviously needed somebody, you needed stability, you needed somebody to come in and help kind of turn the tide a little bit. When was the first time you'd heard the name Mack Rhoades, and what did you know at the time?
The day that I flew, I was on vacation and I had to fly back and met with Bob Bodine, the search committee, who we hired to do the search. Incredibly impressed by Bob Bodine. He has done wonders for Baylor. I think he also brought Scott Drew here. I'm not sure about that. But that was the first time I heard about it because, I think Bob wanted to keep everything under wraps. And so he had a small committee, Dan Horde, Cheryl Gotchis, and I, and Reagan Ramsauer. And we met with him and then Mack that morning.
And what were your first impressions about meeting Mack?
Oh, we were blown away. We were not looking at a whole series of people. That's one of the values of having a search firm. I think Bob fully understood our ethos at Baylor. He's well connected in sports and as well as other areas. And so our impression was just immediately, this is the guy for Baylor. You
needed to hit a home run, didn't you? At the maybe even a grand slam, Dr. Garland.
Yeah, we were not really getting much on base, that's for sure. So yes, there was pressure to do well in this search.
There were others involved in the search along with you. Obviously, you mentioned them as well. But now that you look back, here we are, almost 6 years later. You have to look back almost like a proud father at what you have seen.
When I run into Mack, he thanks me for bringing him to Baylor. I'm not the one that's ultimately responsible for that, although the president is responsible for the athletics. But, I mean, this was such an easy choice. I mean, he had a strong Christian commitment, which fits in with Baylor's Christian commitment. He was willing to leave an SEC school to come to Baylor when things did not look bright at all. He had a great resume of success where he'd been before. What really impressed me was his commitment to student athletes. He talked about preparing them to be champions for life. I mean, I love that we're champions in football, basketball, and men and women's basketball in the Big 12. But really, what is important as a university that we also have our students become champions for life. And the other thing I was really concerned about was that we would have an athletic director who could actually direct, meaning that he could and would direct the coaches and other parts of the program. And to me, it became immediately clear that this was the man.
Dr. Garland, how different was this interview of an AD versus like a normal situation? Because obviously it wasn't a normal situation, but in terms of the types of questions and what you were looking for, I guess when you hire an AD, you are looking for more than just wins and losses, of course, but that's a big part of it. But this was more of a unique case where there was a lot of healing that needed to be done, a lot of work that needed to be done outside of just the wins and losses, but that was also needed. So how unique did that make this particular hiring of an AD process?
Well, I mean, we dealt with the problems at Baylor very honestly, and he was not thrown off by those. I mean, he was ready for a challenge. You know, it's wonderful to look back at what happened. I mean, what has happened since he was hired, and say, well, that was a great hire. But you know, you never know. And I did put a lot of we had a lot of details, and I did trust that we hired a really good search firm in Bob Bodine.
Yeah, and he's going to be on with us tomorrow. Looking forward to some of the stories behind the scenes of what he can tell us, and he's a great storyteller as well. How much did what Mack Rhoades was going through at the time at Missouri, perhaps, in your opinion, help what he needed to start doing at Baylor?
We were encouraged. You know, our biggest fear was, you know, here's somebody who's great, and is he really going to want to come to Baylor? And so I was encouraged that perhaps he did want to leave Missouri because of the problems that they were experiencing as well. And so that was encouraging for us, that this was a real possibility. And he expressed that he really did want to come to Baylor University. And part of it is that our Christian commitment, that he could be openly affirming of his Christian commitment and serve in the role of athletic director.
Oh man, I tell you what, I go back to that time, and it's more about the hiring of Mack. But you had to kind of deflect a lot of things during your time, and so did Jim Grove. How close did the two of you become?
You know, I saw Jim in church every Sunday. He would be there, win or lose, and I remember, I just loved Jim Groves. I remember going to a practice before the season started, and I really appreciated him because he asked me to speak to the team, and later on he said it's the first time in his career that a president ever came to and talked to a team, went to a practice before the season. And I just had the greatest respect for what he did that year. We went on and won the Cactus Bowl, which was also a thrill for me. Jim also set up our success for the future. I really call him Groby.
Yeah, I know.
Groby, yeah.
Phil Bennett, when we talk to Phil Bennett, he always calls him Groby as well. And of course, Phil Bennett loved him as well. You were a boxer in the Navy, is that correct?
Yeah, I remember the first time we ever interviewed back in bad days in the Big 12 conference. You brought that up. I did box at the Naval Academy. I also played lacrosse, but I wasn't any good.
Well, no,
I was okay at boxing.
Yeah, listen, if you can fight or you're a boxer, that's your toughness. Lacrosse is a toughness thing as well. But I did bring that up, and we were at Big 12 Media Days, and I remember how I know that had to be a really difficult time because there were just bullets flying from everywhere. Some of them were piercing, and some of them were not good. How did you, at night, when it was time to kind of wind down at night, how difficult was that for you?
Well, you know, I just also lost my wife about 9 months before, so it was not a good time. What did happen was that I did happen to meet my wife during that year, my future wife. And so that, you know, it was not all bad.
How much of that? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, one other thing, you know, I can't say enough about the people who work at Baylor University. I mean, it was an incredible team. And I just am extraordinarily indebted to them for laying the groundwork for our current success.
You as a fighter, a boxer, and then also as a lacrosse player, how much of that did you rely on during the tough times?
There are a couple of people I like to punch, but I didn't do it.
Oh my goodness! Hey, one thing I'd like for you to talk the discussion about how Bob Bodine, you mentioned Dan Horde, obviously Cheryl Gotches, who's somebody that was a major part of this. You mentioned Reagan and others. Were there a lot of discussions, or when you first met Mack and you said you kind of were blown away? Was there a lot of discussions, or did you guys kind of know from the beginning?
You know, we were blown away. And so our biggest concern was maybe we don't want to lose him. And so we went to lunch and talked together, prayed together. And then we came back and met with him further and decided we're going to make the offer now.
Oh, was that quick then?
That quick.
And what did he say?
I can't remember if he said yes right then. I think we were very encouraged, but I can't remember whether he said right then. But I know what we were saying. We were saying yes.
That's awfully quick, and that obviously was very important. By the way, Kevin Gall was a part of that search as well.
Exactly.
With Bob Bodine, who's now working at Baylor and is very much a part of it. I bet, knowing Mack, he said, I need to talk to Amy and my kids and his girls.
I think that's exactly right. He was very concerned about his girls and also Amy. But I think I got the impression that this was going to be a successful marriage.
How important was it that not only you found the right person, it appears without question, but also that it happened as quickly and it did not drag on? Was that a fear?
To me, yeah, I did not. You know, one of the advantages of hiring Bob Bodine is that we hired him to single out the persons who would be the best available for us in our context, and he did it. You know, we didn't have to go through 100 resumes or anything like that, because frankly, he brought the expertise, and I really appreciated his understanding of our context. And he did not think that Baylor was a lost cause, as many other people did at that time.
Was there ever a time when you thought it was going to get just worse and worse and worse? No,
I did not. I thought, you go through hard times, and you right now you enjoy the joy of the good times, and you learn also to persevere during the hard times. And that may have been, as I look back on it, maybe having been serving in a military experience very young, I think that helps you to learn. You can get through anything.
No question about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things I love, our baseball team, their motto is that, we may be one team away, one game away, one pitch away, one hit away. We don't know, but we're not going to let one thing stop us.
Yeah, no question.
And to me, that's a great motto.
You were in that position. A lot of people would have said no. Some people might have said no. Mack Rhoades could have said no and might have said no. How much stronger of a person are you because of all of what you went through? Not just Baylor, but you, and also learning that that things can get much better.
I don't know if I'm a better person for that at all. You have to ask my wife whether I'm, but I've been through some other hard times and gotten through them. So my coming to Baylor, I did not apply to come to Baylor. I was asked to come to Baylor. A lot of that was because my wife had been fired as the dean of the School of Social Work at Southern Seminary over issues related to women in ministry. And so we thought, that's the end of our careers. And then we wind up coming to Baylor. Now the social work school is named after her. So, you go through hard times and you trust God and you get through things.
Dr. Garland, we appreciate you. What's the book you're writing right now? Anything that you want to share with us?
This is about my 24th book. It's a theology of 2 Corinthians. and I'm revising a commentary in First Corinthians, which is about 900 pages. So I'm not sure unless you need a doorstop or something like that, I'm not sure too many people would be interested.
Oh, I'm sure there will be. Dr. Garland, thanks for your time. We appreciate that.
Well, thank you, Smokey. I appreciate you.
Yes, sir. That's Dr. David Garland. He was the interim president during a very difficult time, as you can imagine. This was post-Pepper Hamilton. Ken Starr gone. Ian McCall had resigned, moved on. Art Browse had been fired. He became the interim president. Jim Grobe took over at the recommendation of, I think Grant Taft brought that up, also Phil Bennett, who they were going to ask, in fact, I think did ask to become the interim head coach, and he said no. The staff all remained together throughout the rest of the year. There were some incredible good times, and there was also some really dark times. And Dr. Godwin was the president. Bob Bodine, I can't wait for this tomorrow at 4 o'clock tomorrow from Eastman and Bodine. This is a very powerful, very, very powerful and influential man. In fact, Sports Illustrated one time said this about Bob Bodine, was the search firm, Kevin Gall's search firm, who's now at Baylor. The most influential man in sports you've never heard of is Bob Bodine. And the list of schools when it comes to coaches and administrators that firm has helped get hired is pretty amazing. And they're really good about stealth-like searches. And the story of how they were able to recruit Matt Rhule. And a couple of things that they said to him right before he left the meeting with them, and he was about to go meet with somebody at Oregon, that was incredible. And then, of course, what he said about this search that happened so quickly with Mack Rhoades, who's now at Baylor since August of 2016.